As a feminist, I think that anarchism has a lot to offer because it's not just about changing or tearing down the systems that oppress us. It's also about building ourselves up as individuals and supporting each other. And one thing that really impacted me when I was 18, I met my friend Katie Crabb, and she had been involved in the Institute for Social Ecology and this group called AWOL in Minneapolis, some anarchist groups in the 80s and early 90s. And they had this idea of feminist group process that was influenced by Joe Freeman and this article that Joe Freeman wrote, I think in the 70s, called The Tyranny of Structurelessness. So the idea is that basically having a certain amount of structure can add to your freedom to participate, because we're not just like people in a room who don't have like our own histories and our own things that have shaped us and our behavior toward each other. We actually are shaped so much by the dynamics of this crazy society that makes us crazy. So basically the idea of facilitation, like when I was 18, I didn't think that facilitating a meeting, I thought that was oppressive. But then my friend Katie was telling me, you know, actually it's kind of a more feminist process to have facilitation, because you're going to make sure that you're going to help the group come to a place where everyone feels comfortable participating. It's not always possible to the utmost, but like what happens sometimes is that there will be a few guys who talk a lot, and there might be some women who feel either less confident or they're getting interrupted, and having a facilitator actually just cuts that down a lot. And structure in other ways, like having different kinds of structure in your organizations can actually just encourage more participation and accountability, which is liberating. I mean, getting your work done is like going in the right direction. You don't want to be, you know, just all at each other's throats because you're not getting anywhere. So I think that basically the other point I wanted to make about anarchist feminism is really different from liberal feminism and other kinds of feminism. And to me, I felt like what we learned when I was in Love and Rage Revolutionary Anarchist Federation, I learned about feminism that was radical and anti-racist and you know, anti-capitalist, and it was so different from a lot of the feminism that people were seeing, because the mainstream feminist organizations had a lot of money, and comparatively, you know, not compared to the right-wing organizations, which have much more money, but they were able to get their message out. And what happened in the 90s was crazy, because there was all of these, you know, the clinics where women would go for health care, including abortions. There would be right-wingers standing in front of them trying to block them. And we were doing clinic defense, and what ended up happening would be like you'd have some person trying to like crawl through your legs, and you're like, no, and you're blocking them because they're trying to block the clinic. And we were defending the clinics. We were actually keeping those clinics open, and we were trying to do it in a way that women would still feel comfortable going inside. But what happened is that the liberal feminists actually told us to leave. I mean, this happened in individual instances, but also in general. They said, we don't want a movement that's doing direct action defending the clinics. We want to rely on the police and the courts. And so they sent us away. And that was a really grassroots feminist movement. And also, it wasn't just about, for us, for the anarchist feminists that I knew at the time, it wasn't about just protecting the right to end a pregnancy, but also if you're a poor woman and you want to have a child, if there's, I mean, there should be no barriers to anyone having a child if they want to have a child. Whether it's the stigma of raising a child by yourself or just not being able to feed your child. I mean, the people who are in power now are just saying basically don't have children if you're poor, and that's racist and it's fucked up. And I think that like there's still there's a range of issues that are called reproductive freedom, and abortion is just one of those. There's sterilization abuse, and there's a lot of issues related to women in prison being shackled while they're giving birth, and just the fact that poor women of color don't have access to good health care or good prenatal care. So these are all like issues that are under the umbrella of reproductive freedom. And I think that anarchist feminism really brings all of those things together. Just in the area of reproductive freedom, but like beyond that, every issue I think you can look at with a much deeper lens if you're actually bringing in anti-racist feminism, anti-capitalist feminism, and looking at all of how these things work together. And then also resisting the cooptation of the women's movement into nonprofits that are very top down, and also some of the ways that it's just in academia now. We can do it differently. We don't have to do it like, it doesn't have to be your job, you know. Changing the world is something that we can do. We don't have to be paid for it as a 9-to-5, or you don't have to put your career first. And I think that that's what the feminist movement has sort of become, is like nonprofit careers and advocacy. And I think that that kind of takes it out of the hands of regular people. So I think that anarchist feminism really offers an alternative to that.